Well, hello, 3D here, and I finished my through hike about 2 weeks ago. Finally getting around to a little gear review. This is just what I used, and it's very personal and whatever works for you. And there's infinite ways to combine this stuff and get other things, but a couple of the things that I always looked for in the gear was for something to be lightweight and small, because compacting inside the bag is important. In terms of the lightweight, I just thought of a new way to lighten my load. And here's what it is. Oof! Hey, that's a way to get rid of some weight, get rid of that beard. All right, so here we go with the gear review for me. Anyway, lots of ways to handle this. I used a ULA bag. Circuit is the style. It's just a big empty bag. There's no extra pockets. Those are great for organization, but all those extra pockets and zippers and everything add weight. So just a big hole in there. On the side is a place for water. I just use Gatorade bottles. Put the duct tape around the Gatorade bottles. When I wear it, I can actually, while I'm walking, reach the Gatorade bottles and drink, so I never have to worry about any of that. All right, I'm not going to hook that right now. Hanging here is a bandana. This is good for wiping my nose in the cold weather, wiping my brow in the hot weather, and it was just right there and easily accessible without ever having to take it off. Also hooked onto this little thing, I normally had my head net that goes in there, pulls it out, and the head net itself I used a lot. Those gnats and mosquitoes really bugged me. Get it? So there's the head net, and then what I found was it got very hot, so I'd pull it up like this, and then that string would end up like a windshield wiper and keep the gnats anyway away from my face. So that was kind of a cooler way to handle them. I had my cap. I used it a lot in the first month or two before the leaves came out, but once they came out, I was just walking through the green tunnel and I really didn't even need it. It was kind of handy for rain to keep the brow on if I didn't want to put the jacket on, but yeah, it's 50-50 on carrying this thing. Okay, in this pocket I kept my toiletry kit, and all I had in here, it's in a lock sack, L-O-K-S-A-K, which it's known for keeping the smell out, and bears and animals can't smell whatever's inside here. And since there's toothpaste in there, I needed that in there. So I have a little travel toothpaste. My toothbrush, I sawed off, so there it is, a little toothbrush holder here. I have some toothpicks in there, little plastic toothpicks, and my ibuprofen or naproxen that I had easily at hand. This is a cover for my phone, just a waterproof Ziploc, and earphones. Kept all of that over on this side, and you'll notice I keep saying where I kept stuff. Once I settled on where things were, I always kept things in exactly the same place. It just makes everything so much more efficient, and sometimes you're fishing for things in the dark, so if you know exactly where everything is, really works out. I used a bright pink phone cover that protected it from bumps, as well as I wouldn't lose it in the leaves or on the black bottom of my tent. In the back mesh thing here, I kept the things that I wanted easily accessible, which included a ground cloth. If the ground was particularly full of rocks or sticks or something that I couldn't clear, I would unfold it and put it under my tent. Most times I didn't need it, but I did use it. I pulled it out a lot of times just to sit on wet logs or rocks or something in the course of the day. Here's my water purification approach. I had a Sierra cup, and I would, if I could, I'd just get water directly into my Gatorade bottle, fill it all the way to the top, and sometimes I would have to use this cup to get it all in there. Once that was full, I used a Steri pen. It's a UV light. and you pull that out, you start it, you put it in the top, and you spin it around for about 2 minutes until the light goes off, and then your water is clean. It really worked for me. I didn't see many other people using that method, but worked for me. So I kept that in there. And then my toilet, or my bathroom accessories. I had a little Huggies, baby wipes. That they work amazing. And then I'd use some A&D ointment and apply it with a little toilet tissue. So that seemed to keep me from getting swamp ass that you may hear so much about. Never had it, and I really like that system. And then on top, I had my rain shell, raincoat, very lightweight. This particular one is called Outdoor Research. And I use that to go over. Sometimes I put it over my fleece, sometimes I wear it by myself, sometimes by itself, sometimes over my heavy, puffy jacket, so it just depended on the conditions. Everything had one purpose, and I could mix and match depending on the conditions. All right, so that's sort of like the main part of the bag here. What goes in the bag? Well, the first thing I'll talk about is the tent. I used a tarp tent. That's the name of the company. It's also the style. And other companies, I think, have started using that same name tarp tent for a style, which is basically a tarp and then a mesh mosquito netting little room underneath that tarp, and then kind of a bathtub bottom. At least this one was. It's all connected. It's not like separate pieces. It goes up very quickly, about maybe 3 to 5 minutes, and maybe even less. And then I had this little device at the top where I would hook this. It uses trekking poles as the tent poles, and then you can in the spare. There's one vestibule you're getting in and out of, and then the other one is kind of spare. So in the spare one, I would hook this the end of this little part of the bag, now an empty bag, with this carabiner, and then I could hook my tent pack, or my backpack, on the carabiner, which is held up at the top with this, so it kept it out of the tent and up off of the ground. Really worked out nicely. Let's leave that there. Okay, the first thing on the floor of the tent was my sleeping pad, and I would blow it up and then undo it. A lot of people use the closed foam. I did that as well for a while, but I ended up switching to this. I liked the comfort, and I got into rockier country toward the end, and this was more appropriate. I put these little non-skid things, like sandpaper kind of things on the bottom, so it wouldn't slide around on the bottom of the tent. This particular brand is I don't know. Oh, Big Agnes insulated Q core. It worked fine. I imagine they all work pretty fine. I kept everything dry. This one I kept in this Cuban fiber dry bag. All right. Let's see. Sleeping bag. For the winter, I used this 15-degree, I think it's Marmot. I'll find the title on it. Here it is. Marmot bag. And it's got, the down in this is treated with, I can't remember the name of the process, but it's treated with some chemical that makes it pretty water resistant. So I never really got it wet, but it was nice to have that, backup comfort feeling that it wouldn't get wet. And I kept the sleeping bag in a compactor bag, trash compactor bag. My summer bag, it was actually a summer quilt that I used, and I changed it out in Parisburg to go from winter to summer, and then in Hanover to go from winter back to summer again. And this, I used a Thermarest Alpine, and that's a 35-degree quilt. You just pull it over you, bad. I used a sleeping bag liner when I used my winter bag, and that's good because you put your sweaty body into this at night and then crawl into the bag, and then when you get into town you can wash this and your bag stays clean. I did not use this on my summer quilt when I'm just laying on my pad, my sleeping pad. This is laying on top of me. It didn't really, I wasn't really like pushing myself into it, and it stayed pretty, it didn't seem to get too soiled. All right, let's see. Now, the clothing. Let's start with what I was wearing. I wore a synthetic shirt that has like some silver thread in it to prevent kind of an odor protection thing. Actually, my daughter got it from me from Lululemon, and I get no royalties on this. The pants were I got from Ex Officio. They're infused with permethrin, and that keeps the ticks off, and they're also light colored, and the ticks don't like light colored, evidently. Cargo pants. Also Ex Officio gives, I got this underwear, and I've got them long so that I didn't chafe, and I never had any chafing problems. I had a belt here that is the kind that doesn't have the little holes, it's like for me it was a Boy Scout belt. I don't know, when I was in Boy Scouts we had belts like that. Nice and lightweight. And as I trimmed up during the course of the hike, I was able to cinch that up tighter. I had a little lightweight backpacking wallet that I kept in a Ziploc bag. Also in a Ziploc was my AWOL. I'm talking fast here so that I can just get through all of this stuff and not make it just like really, really long. This was the AWOL guide, and I kept it in my cargo pants pocket right here. I made it nice and easy to get to. The other thing that I used on my phone, by the way, was gut hooks, which it takes, I think it was about 60 bucks or so, and you get the entire trail, and it tells you, it communicates with GPS to tell you exactly where on the trail you are. It's a very handy little item. I'll talk more about my phone when I get to some other stuff. And then finally, I had a little pocket over here. I kept a whistle and had a mirror on it, and my gigantic Swiss Army knife. My socks and shoes, my liners, I went through a lot of different things, but I ended up with these little guys with toes in them. They're called Injinji, and they really ended up protecting my toes from rubbing against each other. I liked it a lot, so I had those as the toe liners, and darn tough wool socks over top of that. That in my, I use trail runners. For me, I use these, they're called Ultra is the company, Lone Peak was the style. I have particularly wide toe boxes, so they really worked for me. It gets one size larger than what your regular size is, because your feet will expand and swell, and you're wearing 2 pairs of socks. And I went through a bunch of these, but they really work. Trail runners, they're good to allow. They're lightweight. They're very stiff-soled, so they're a lot tougher than you think. And when water will get into them, and then it'll squish right back out. So I like that. And then my trekking poles, I use Black Diamond trekking poles. These are carbon fiber. They're expandable, which I needed for my using them also as tent pegs, tent poles. All right, so let's see. The other part of the clothing was, this is what I wore inside the tent. I had this little mesh bag, and I always packed everything with a certain destination in mind. So when I'm unpacking this, the first thing I would, in this case I pulled the wrong one out, there. And the first thing I would pull out is this shirt, because that's the first thing I take off, and it's personal preference, but I always did it exactly the same. This is a Smart Wool t-shirt, and a Smart Wool long john shirt if I needed it. It also served as a in-town, if I ever went to kind of a nice place, it kind of served to allow that. Then I had a pair of pants, just like the other pants, and this is all for sleeping. This is all sleepwear. And dry. I was meticulous about always keeping this dry, so I had something dry to wear at night. And I would, of course, hang the other stuff. I had a shirt, a long sleeve shirt, and if I needed that at night when I'm sleeping, or sometimes I'd pull this shirt out and I would use it sometimes during the day, depending on the weather. But I just ended up with the one shirt. Another pair of wool socks, and then in this bag was my headlamp, and of course all of this stuff is what I pull out for nighttime. What I liked about this is the black diamond, and it has a safety feature on it so that it won't turn on in the bag. Very important. And it's also waterproof. And then I kept my earplugs in here as well. Oh, that's right. And I, at night, first thing I would do is I pull this out, turn off the safety latch, and then I hung this with a twist tie on the top of the inside of the tent, and it turned out to be my overhead light, and I used that a lot. Very handy. All right, so that was that's not all the clothing. The rest of the clothing is over here. This was my fleece jacket, and I used to call this my closet because this is where I keep all my, well, what I would keep in there is I had one pair of gloves, one pair of mitten shells, and which I did an extra coating of seam seal around all of the seams, and this is an Arctec or Arctex wool cap. Any wool cap is fine. This, like, if the number one thing to keep you warm when you're out there is a wool cap. You got to have that. I slept with it often. Also, here's the other glove and mitten, and then my balaclava I wore, and this is handy. I put it over. You can pull. I wore it sometimes while I was hiking. Pull it up over your nose if it's you got a cold nose. You pull it down over your face. You pull it off, and then you just have a ring around your neck. So it's multifunctional, and I wore it almost every night there during the cold weather. That's that. Now they say you pack your fears, and one of my fears was getting cold, so I had this really nice Montbell puffy jacket, and I kept that in a Cuban fiber bag, and it just fit in there real nicely, just like so. And then you lock it up and roll it up like so. All right, the food. Oh, and at the bottom, also in my bag was I used a Nalgene bottle, and I would pee in this in the middle of the night, so I didn't have to get up and tromp around outside. The food I kept in 3 bags essentially. I used these are Cuban fiber bear bags. Inside I would have one of these large lock sacks. Actually, I had 3 large lock sacks, one for breakfast, one for lunch, one for dinner. And that just kept me organized. This also has the seal on it so that so that bears and animals can't smell it. So that's what I had in there. These bear bags I also had on the few times that I hung them. Here's a little sack with twine inside, 25 foot, so you can fling it up over. When I did do that, I used the PCT method, and you may want to look that up on another YouTube of how to hang a bear bag using the PCT method. So that's where I kept my all of my dinners, but I would every day pull out my lunch that I was going to eat for the day. This I kept packed at the bottom of the bag because it was heavy, but this I stuck at the top of the bag because I needed to get to it there in the middle of the day. It was a little heavy, and it'd be better if it were at the bottom, but for the efficiency I kept it at the top. So I had all my protein bars and things like that in here, access for lunch, trash bag, just a Ziploc, and then my whole first aid kit got smaller and smaller as the hike went on, and I can't even remember what all I started with, but all I ended up with was some poison ivy lotion here. I've got some triple antibiotic, a couple of wet wipes, fingernail clippers, and mostly what I used these for was clipping my toenails You got to keep your toenails small, really trim all the time because they're banging into the front of your shoe. And some Imodium. I have some dental floss in there too. This is Leuko tape, L-E-U-K-O. It's great. It's like medical tape. You have to order it on internet, at least I did. And it stretches in all different directions. It really worked out well. I have some moleskin and some Band-Aids in here, as well as a needle and thread. All right, that's the extent of it. That was my whole first aid package at the end of all of this. I had a lot more things that I just kept shedding as I went through. All right, what else? And then also I carried this in a dry bag. I had knee braces and an ankle brace. Never needed the ankle brace, thank goodness. This was a pretty heavy load. It was extra external batteries for my phone. The phone I happened to get was an Android with a like longest lasting battery. I got Verizon. That seems to be the preferred service provider along the trail. I had pretty good service compared, relatively. It was very frustrating. You get service on the top, you'd lose it on the bottom. So when you're talking to somebody, you talk on the top, you can't talk on the bottom. Anyway, it was off and on all the time, but Verizon seemed to be the best. So on these external batteries, most people didn't have so much external batteries. For me, I was hiking my hike. I wanted, to have that kind of connectivity. I was kind of proud of this, something to plug into the wall, and this is a charger for my phone, and then I had this little styrofoam with holes in it and duct tape to protect the prongs on that thing. Kool-Aid. And then I also had two sets of extra batteries for my Steri pen, and one set of extra batteries for my headlamp. I had a waterproof matches and a lighter in case I need to start a fire, which I never did, and tenacious tape, which I used to repair the bottom of my tent. I used it to repair several things, and it's better than duct tape. All right, so that was that. I think that is everything that went into my pack. Now I'll talk a little bit about what I got rid of along the trail. So if you'll step back there. I started off with some Tyvek that was going to be my seating pad, and I realized I can just use my ground cloth, so I didn't need that. I started off with long johns, and because the only time I would ever need them was when I was crawling into a sleeping bag, so I just didn't need them. If you're the kind of person that spends a lot more time hanging around, I don't know, cold hostels or shelters or something, and you're out and about and more social, maybe you need them, but I didn't. I started with 2 pairs of shirts and realized, I'm not really needing 2 pairs, so I got rid of 1 pair that I just, one shirt, not pairs, that I used in the tent if I needed it, or occasionally I wore it out of the tent, but I only ended up needing one shirt. Same thing with the underwear. I started with 2. I ended up with 1. I'd wash it when I was in town, and I was in town every 4 or 5 days, and I know, kind of gross, but that worked for me. I definitely got rid of the rain pants. They made my legs sweat more than they they got just as wet as if they were getting wet with the rain. So and they're heavy, so I ditched the rain pants. I don't know, this was just to remind me that I had some Glide, and some people use that. I used Trail Toes was another thing, but I never really ended up using those once I got those socks with the little toes on them. So that's something I got rid of. A lot of people have bug spray, and I found that between the head net and the clothing, and I wore long pants the whole way. Sometimes I wore the long shirt in the really bad mosquito areas. It was hot, but it kept them off of me. And I just didn't like putting so much DEET on my skin, D-E-E-T. So I never ended up using that. A lot of people do though. I had little tips for the trekking poles, because the trekking poles will pick up leaves, but ended up not using them. And just not worrying about the leaves so much. And then I started off with 2 pairs of gloves and didn't really need the second pair, so I got rid of that. I started off with a larger size belt from my backpack, and then found that when I lost weight I needed to get a smaller belt, so I changed that out. And then finally I had this is the closed cell sleeping pad, and I used that. I used another bag on top of it. One thing that was kind of good about that, and most people use this method actually, was I strapped it here to the back, and then it ended up being like a kickstand, and my pack would stay up like that. But it's bulky, and then I was looking for extra comfort when I got into the rockier country. Okay, so that's pretty much all the gear review. There was one other thing that I didn't talk about, and that was the absence of my stove and fuel. I elected not to take my stove along. That's something that I had learned about at the Appalachian Trail Institute. I took a 5-day course there with Dr. Doyle. It's pretty helpful too, by the way. But I decided not to take it. It's bulky, it's heavy, kind of heavy, and I just went with cold food all the way. So that was my plan. My breakfasts were mostly like Power Bars and Little Debbie's, that kind of thing. My lunches were peanut butter crackers and trail mix and Power Bars, that kind of thing, protein bars. And my dinner was often it was almost always a peanut butter and jelly rolled up in tortillas. Maybe some chips, potato sticks, Oreo cookies, water for drinking. So anyway, that was it. Okay, I think that's it for my whole gear review. Thank you for following along, and it was a little kind of frantic, fast. Happy hiking, everybody. 3D signing off.